So we're going to be talking about creating fintech ecosystem for all. I'd like to call onto the stage Mr. Rayaan Arif from Funding Tree, Jaroslaw Dabrowski from DFCM, and Mr. Mustafa Baltacı from FintechPark. The stage is yours. Thank you.
But in my defense, I flew all the way from the United States to come and speak to you, so please give me a few minutes. So my name is Rayaan Arif. I live in the United States. I work on a number of innovations in fintech. This happens to be my own personal baby. Funding Tree, we're launching a marketplace for real estate transactions. It's primarily focused on the United States at the moment, but the project itself is fairly global. And I'm very intrigued by what's going on here in Turkey in terms of real estate and the development. And so I believe some of these things will be applicable here also. Okay, so we're focusing on three areas that we believe blockchain technology will impact. In the funding process, funding by that we mean either lending or any kind of debt and equity that's involved in a real estate transaction. Investments, that are made by people into those projects, and then obviously the technology that will underserve all of these. Okay, so this is a summary of the problems. I think these are problems that are probably more relevant in the United States. We have a lot of people have talked about legacy systems. We have the most legacy systems anyway. Most of these things are still on mainframe. It's very costly, it's slow, it's outdated, it's paper intensive, and it's labor intensive. And that's, if people don't see that as a problem in, the 21st century, then there is a problem. Okay, so, just to break those problems down, the average cost in the United States is about 10% for every transaction. That equates to, on average, about $13,000 per transactions. And there are about 5.5 million transactions just in residential real estate alone. So do the math. We're talking about billions of dollars worth that goes into costs, and people are tired of paying that. The systems are incompatible. Nobody has end-to-end visibility. Everyone has their own system. The escrow company has their system. The banks have their system. The brokers have their system. The agents have their system. And the poor customer that goes through that cycle doesn't know where they are in the process. You have lots of intermediaries. The reason why in the United States the system is supposed to work really well is because there's lots of people doing checking and verification and fixing things. Also, it's become very paper intensive. 500 pages per transaction. In a commercial real estate, it's about 1,000 pages per transaction. The industry is required to keep about 40 trillion pages as far as the auditing requirements. That's an awful lot of paper, and we should try and save the planet. So we're focusing on the key components of blockchain. I'm not going to bore you too much with blockchain technology. A lot of people have already talked about it. Smart contracts will play a significant role in that. Real estate transactions are very process driven from start to finish. We're building a smart contract that takes care of that process and ensures that people have to do things according to that contract. And we just want to break it down to 4 main areas. Obviously, people have already talked a lot about KYC, know your customer, and having certificates and identity. That's a key element of the blockchain, which we are building into our system. One of the key factors is that when you try to have lots of paperwork and documentation, you need to have a robust system. So we're building a documentation system where everything will sit on the blockchain. And then the last part is the financial transactions. Not many people today have talked about cryptocurrencies, but cryptocurrencies are playing a part, like it or not. No matter what happens to Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies will play a major part. So we want to make sure that our system is compatible with fiat currency and cryptocurrencies. globally, and we're building that. Again, I'm not going to bore you too much. That's part of the registration process that people will have to go through, and just think of it as the BMW. You're only looking at driving experience. You're not interested in what's under the hood. A lot of these things are under the hood. In the front, we want to make it as user-friendly as possible for people to do these. Again, determining their roles and everything else, it's really important part of, knowing who has a permission, who has access, and what level of access they have. Our document management system, to get rid of, our goal is to have a paperless system so that there is no need to keep documents. Everything is digital. The system is essentially, if you look at it, it's process driven. All these things from listing agreement, approval letters, they all have the customers and the participants will have end-to-end visibility throughout. These are event driven, in that something has to happen before the next thing can happen. In other words, if you have a listing agreement before you go to a purchase contract, before you apply for financing and so on. And so it's process-driven, event-driven, and our system is being built around that. Again, as I said, it's a process flow drive, and everything will be secured on the blockchain, and all the records are immutable, and there is a process to audit them all the way to the end. The trust parties in this case, we're not doing away with the participants to the system. The agents, the escrow companies, the appraisers, they will have to be part of that system, except it'll be more efficient and we'll have less need for them as opposed to having lots of escrow offices. All right. Okay, so again, the participants in this case, we have appraisers, banks, the cities, the GSEs. The GSEs are the companies that buy the loans. In the United States, every loan is bought by the GSEs. And then everyone's on the blockchain, the buyers, sellers, agents. So we're not doing away with any of the real estate industry. We have some patents already on this technology, which have, some have been filed, some are patent pending. And just a couple of things I want to change, because we work on a lot of other startups also. You have to have a good, strong go-to-market strategy. And one of the things I want to really stress is that, we have become masters at marketing, beyond just building businesses. And it's something as entrepreneurs and people who are looking to do their startups, find yourself either a good marketing company or become good marketers yourself. Because you can have a great idea and a great product if you don't know how to connect all the dots and be out there in all these places. So all the people that are involved in our project, either run these massive events for thousands of people, but they're master marketers also. And we know how to gather a crowd. We've done it in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, in Las Vegas. But that's really all part of supporting our whole ecosystem. We really do this as, we don't even make any money from these events, but we do it to promote the startups. And it helps to know, all the key players in the industry, and obviously my background, in building companies, being involved in several companies. We either have invested in them, worked for them, or, been part of those companies. And that's it. That's our team, and that's all about me. So, thank you.
Well, thank you, Rayaan. And Jaroslaw, very quickly, can you please also make your presentation so we can go ahead with the questions?
Here.
Can we switch? Thanks very much. It's an awful job, actually. Everybody's hungry, lunch is waiting, and we have to entertain you for a couple of minutes. Well, actually, I was thinking about actually completely changing this presentation and give you a little bit like a geek but Mustafa, who is the God Almighty here, he prevented me from that. So unfortunately, I have to run this presentation, otherwise he will not sign up my papers here. So, but I will be quick. Well, it's actually, I love this job because what I do, sorry, I will be just sitting, you know, it will be probably, you know, easier to talk. Because I see like two basically groups here in this conference, in this room. Bankers like myself, and most of them are wearing ties and suits, and the guys who are changing the world, you know, like you guys, without ties or sometimes even without suits. So actually I was thinking about how to bridge you, if I called it I'm bridging two groups. And I thought, you know, well, it's a nice tie, I keep it, then I will just leave this, okay, in the beginning. So now I tell you the story why I'm bridging and why it's, there is a logic behind. I spent 15 years setting up, managing, merging, squeezing, innovating, whatever, banks in Central Europe. Well, it was pretty good career, you know, good brands, Raiffeisen International, DNB, NordLB. But, you know, then in 2010, I had a very substantial discussion with my ex-owners regarding the strategy of the bank. And then I realized that actually I'm not only a CEO of the bank, but I'm also a puppet, okay? And I thought, well, you know, I'm still young, I want to change the world, you know? So instead of being a puppet, very well paid, but puppet, I would rather go on my own. And this is actually another beginning of the story. For the next conference, I will set up a presentation how to leave banking and become entrepreneur, but you know, we are talking about technology. So since 2010, actually, I'm setting up, developing, selling, and again, reinventing startups in a wider sense of financial services. And actually, I'm bridging these two elements, which is banking, basically, banking industry, and startups, because I have pretty good experience, you know. There are probably better ones, but in Poland or in Central Europe, not too many of my ex-colleagues from banking, they were brave enough, or stupid enough, we will see in a few years from now, to do this and to go this way. So, and I was always fond of Turkey because I thought we have a lot of similarities, you know. Young, dynamic societies, you know, we want to move forward, very well advanced banking, technology-oriented, because we were relatively late with real growth of banking industry that allows us to overcome and trespass all these gaps from German banking or even American banking, which is boring, you know, definitely not customer-oriented. I'm quite sure I was serving as a CEO of a German bank in Poland 5 years, my friends. That's tough. And of course, we have a lot of young people who want to have their own success stories. So, I have 9 minutes to go and 15 slides, but you know, you will find it on my webpage or on my Facebook tomorrow, so don't worry. There is a lot of statistics, you know, so we can summarize it in a few minutes at the end. But what is for me like an ecosystem or environment between all of us to push it forward? It's actually bridging the gap, mainly mental gap between bankers and all guys who are making our job difficult, regulators, owners, and you know, some other IT guys, compliance, banking associations. There is a guy from banking association in Poland, he's smiling. He will tell you more about regulatory aspects. So, you know, this is one aspect. I mean, you know, there are banks, of course, which were set up as a consequence of a revolution, digital revolution or internet revolution or post-crisis revolution, and they are up to the level. I think a very good example in Poland, there are 2-3 banks. One of them is Alior Bank. Let's go quickly to that slide, which was set up in 2007 after the crisis. How can I? Excuse me, guys. So this is a new bank, modern bank, and they sort of, you know, in our culture. Another one is an M-Bank. It's actually a bank, thanks very much. It's a bank which is quite you know, traditional in some areas, but also it was merged with a digital arm called multi-bank M-Bank, you know. So now it's very modern. I will show you these 2 or 3 graphs just to memorize, you know. So these banks on the right side, yeah, we have Alior Bank, we have M-Bank. Well, and we have a good experiment of PKO BP, the largest Polish bank, like a Sparkassen, the savings bank, which is becoming, you know, a little bit more open for innovation. But, you know, this is a challenge for them. I think it's more for PR than for the real effects at the moment, okay? But, you know, these guys from the right side, they try. Of course, there are followers. So, you know, at least some of the area is trying to catch up, to understand the customer needs, not only go for, you know, cost savings, but also bringing benefits, you know, quality of services, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, banking, you know, we have so many things around which stops us from being modern, innovative. You should be really very grateful to the bankers that despite that, they are moving forward, yeah? But we also have you guys, yeah? I mean, generally speaking, startuppers, entrepreneurs, founders, guys like Mustafa, who is actually, you know, facilitator with a strong roots in capital markets. And, you know, the thing is that, you know, we need to bring it together and somehow institutionalize it. Of course, not formalize it, but making more working, you know, like win-win. Well, you know, very important point which I want also touch is that in Poland, it's a young economy, relatively young economy. We're moving fast, 4.6% GDP growth last year, on average 3.5 in the last 25 years, unprecedented success. However, it's still a young economy. There is not enough assets in the country, free assets. And also, what we are having is a relative decline, as in all other emerging markets, of the stock exchange, yeah? So, you know, it's all about money. Who will be supporting innovation, especially in the financial industry? If we leave it only for banks or banking associations, it probably will not work fast, because there are drivers inside the industry or around the industry which are not pushing this very much forward. We have a very good guy, excellent project, which I'm happy to advise on strategic development, about accounting as a tool to grow the bank. You know, we have our stories, you know, in Polish banking. I know everybody there, yeah? Accounting as a, you know, driving force for banking, Jarek, compliance, IT, security, forget it. Well, we are almost, you know, there. The first bank is after 18 or 15 months of proving the concept. It's proven. They have 50,000 customers. Happy customers, they are on a go, 2 in a pipeline, but it was a nightmare in the beginning. So we can't leave it for bankers. Otherwise, it will be very slow, a German banking type, okay? I'm sorry, don't quote me. My colleagues from Frankfurt will kill me. But anyway, that's the biggest industry, but also, unfortunately, not the very dynamic. We know it from experience, and I know it. So, you know, very important point that you have other alliances. Because honestly, even, you know, Turkey is 80 million people, Poland is 40 million, strong banking industries, good shape. It's not enough market capacity, sort of, to really make it profitable. And at the end of the day, directly or indirectly, yeah, like cyber productivity, this business, this innovation business, the fintech business, must be profitable. No sense to keep it if it doesn't give you extra customers, extra loans, better deposits, or cost savings, yeah? Or customer satisfaction. You have to measure it somehow, but monetize at the end. So we need to have other alliance, yeah? And I just put on the slide 2, which are in Poland maybe not moving fast enough, but this is a source of hope. And this is PFR. This is a state-owned or publicly owned development fund. They have allocated, they have strategy, and they have allocated 500 million euro in the next 5 years to push the innovation. Some of them, lesser than I would expect, is in the generally speaking, fintech, banking tech or insure tech. Because I'm trying to convince the guys from PFR, go support banks, give money, because it's one of the most innovative industries in Poland, banking or financial services, yeah? We're not a coal mining country anymore, we are more in innovation, but you know, there is not too many of those industries where you have such a strength. So, PFR, 500 million euro to support innovation. It's slow, but hopefully maybe next year or this year, there will be support to mix up banking or bankers with the public funds. A national center for R&D, let's say, this lower brand, it's also going into that area. You know, they are quite developed. Innovation is supported. This is part of the ecosystem. If state only declares, guys, innovate. I want to see this. We are very innovative. You know, we have prime ministers, presidents, or ministers. You know, they love it. But at the end of the day, you need to have environment or institutions. Let's hope these guys will do much better. As you know, we have a prime minister who is ex-banker. He was running the third largest Polish bank, a very professional guy. He completely understands it. From the intellectual point of view, experience point of view, Mateusz Morawiecki is the right guy on the right place. We will see how effective he will be, obviously, because he became a politician. However, this is a very good signal. Now, last but not least, obviously, this is an obvious choice. These are sort of professional funders, either venture capital or investment funds or seed financing. I just listed three: MCI, SpeedUp, and IQ Partners. I'm quite linked to MCI. I was funding them at the time when I was a CEO of the banks. The people, you know, people said, Jarek, you are stupid, you will lose all the money. So far, we haven't lost anything, and my guys from DNB is my last sort of corporation type of project. They are happy. The loans or services are being serviced. They are quite aggressive. They become big now, so it is uneasy to get money for the startups or smaller ventures. But they have growth equity. You know, SpeedUp is very, very aggressive now. They have more than 100 ventures. IQ Partners also. And thanks to this, thanks to this left side of the slide, PFR and NCBR, you know, so public support, there will be a combination of public and private funding, plus banks, which are even creating their own hubs, or as they call it, accelerators, which is a quasi-venture capital. And of course, we have a stock exchange, which is very also vital. It used to be very vital. 1 minute. But of course, it will not work for the very small ventures, pre-revenue or little revenue. So altogether, this environment is about bridging bankers or financial services guys and the innovators. But someone has to facilitate it. We need to talk, we need to communicate, we need to share experience, but it's all about money. If we don't have money, or if we don't have money, willingness to change, at the same time environment which allow us for that, it will not be, unfortunately we will be stuck with these guys. Regulatory changes, you know, EU directive, legal changes. It's very interesting. A new guy who is heading Polish Financial Authority, he's young, he's innovative, he's a PhD from the best university in economics. He set up a team of young analysts, and they identified 100 regulatory barriers of fintech growth. So far, they abolished 3, but it's only 2 years, guys. So, you know, let's give him a little bit more chance. Well, most of the things you will find on my webpage. Just a summary. Traditional institutions will lose, and this is according to PwC, at least 20% of the business in the coming years. I have no doubts about it. I just came from China. That was my 21st visit to China. We did IPOs, we did joint venture with Huawei, Alibaba, and so on. You know, what Alipay and brings to the market is tremendous. This is actually, in the largest cities of, you know, Eastern China, the most advanced country I ever seen. America, it's crap, maybe parts. China is moving. And also because of that these guys on the top there, you know, officially they keep strength of the banks, yeah? They keep them under control, everything is regulated, but unofficially, typical Chinese style, they say to Alibaba, go. Allow people to use services, cheaper, quicker, better. You know what will be the valuation of the ant? They are going for the stock exchange next year. 150, at least, $billion. They want to wait. They want to have 200 billion, okay? So the growth, we don't have time, but this is the way forward. Second, many banks will disappear. Obviously, not only because of the fintech pressure. You guys are too small. And this is not immense sort of, pressure. But the larger guys will concentrate the assets, the wealth, and of course they will be more and more aggressive. So the smaller will die, or they will merge, as we see in Poland. In the last 18 months, something like 7 to 8 banks from the top 25 disappeared, or disappearing, okay? And there will be probably a concentration, 5, 7 to 10. But of course there will be a new wind of change with institutions like AntPay or Alipay. I strongly believe it must happen. At the moment, of course, EU is a very big barrier, due to this over-regulated environment there. And last, the synergy and cooperation between typical, traditional financial institutions and fintechs. And guys like the banking industry or stock exchange. We have also a new guy on the stock exchange level in Poland. There is a lot of new guys, but we need to somehow push the things forward and institutionalize it. And last but not least, if you won't have the money, forget about the growth. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It was a very impressive and quite interesting, presentation. Since we are running out of time, I will ask one question to each of you. I know that you have this deep involvement in the US market, you know it quite well, but you have also this affiliation with NRI India as well as H196. I'm pronouncing it right.
Yes.
Okay. So it would be nice to, resonate a bit on the Indian market for my question, and the same thing for the Polish market. The ecosystem requires a good alignment of the parties. I'm not referring to the equal powers, or one is stronger than the other, but it requires a good harmony of the regulators, as well as the startups, fintechs, the technology providers, and the banks, plus financial institutions, right? So in terms of the Polish ecosystem, as you just said, it is a symbiosis, and it's the likely scenario in the way forward. But are the new entrants amigos and enemigos for the banks? How do they take it?
Well, first of all, the banks become smart enough to take them on board. So they very quickly, there are good teams, especially in the front runners like mBank, Alior Bank, one or two more. So, you have enough people to understand whether this is something which is changing the industry, bringing benefits or not. The process is still very slow. But they are trying to just detect, what is the value added and get into that. This is not probably a problem. The problem is from that point to taking it on board and making it own, or investing, or using. This is the problem. I think, we need to, well, what is the best example? The best example is if something works. So then everybody copy each other. So the pioneers are, of course, having the most difficult task. But one, like Rafał, with the cyber productivity. But once you have 50,000 extra SME or micro clients, which you can really deploy better product portfolio, or quick credit decision making, or use this information to sell or to add on, then of course everybody wants to have it, But this first is always a problem. But there is a hope, because these accelerators, which is a quasi-venture capital fund around the bank, yeah, and there will be probably at least 5 to 7, maybe 10 banks soon having such structures. This will create an open banks for not only new technology, but also new culture, which is very important, accepting innovation and accepting risk, which is of course calculated risk. Yeah, we are in banking environment. So it's an easy answer. It's a process. Still forces of evil, you know, old, are very strong, but there are good signs for the future development.
I find an analogy between the Polish and the Turkish market. I think the banks are quite strong, well-resourced and well-capitalized, and the innovation mostly comes from within rather than the outside. And the US market might be a bit different in the respect. I don't know much about the Indian market, but very quickly, how does it, I mean, how is it being taken?
So I think, you know, our approach has been very global, and we, you know, the reason why, you know, entrepreneurs in India, entrepreneurs in the US and in Europe, we've started to build a global team, because what we're seeing is what's being developed here is applicable in India. What's being developed in India is applicable over here. So our approach is very much to, you know, cross-fertilize all these different innovations that are occurring. One thing I've found very interesting is that using examples of India and even what's happening in Europe, that's your proof of concept, because it's very difficult in the US to do certain things, because one, there's this belief that we have the best system that already works. We don't, but there is a belief that we have that. So when we see it working in Europe, and when we see examples in India where, you know, they have a land registry system that's far superior to the US, and now, you know, prior to that, they didn't have a land registry system. That's proof that this is how it works. This is how the technology is working. So that's the kind of proof we want to take back into our ideas that we're developing in other countries, and say, look, we've already tested it in this country. We're already seeing, you know, a lot of development going on in Estonia, in Ukraine, in Turkey. So, you know, for me, it's great to come out here to see this level of innovation actually taking place. And actually, it's a bit of an eye-opener, because as I was saying earlier, that outside of, you know, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, San Francisco, New York, and Miami, those are the key destinations we all love to go to. We think all the technology and all the money is there, but having seen what I've seen in Turkey in just a day, it tells me there's innovation going on everywhere. And we're fairly global. All my partners are traveling all over the world, so we have a reasonable idea. But I think, you know, we're excited by, you know, trying to merge these different entities together.
So, you know, we are running almost 1 hour late, and it is your panel right now. Perhaps we should take the questions outside. Sorry about that. Sorry. So, Rayaan, thank you very much. Jarek, many thanks. And hope you enjoyed the discussion. Sorry about being late again, and we should move on to the next panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I should leave here.